Gözaltıların, tutuklamaların, davaların ve yasakların hiç eksik olmadığı bir haftayı daha ardımızda bıraktık. Gündemimiz bir hayli yoğun ve karanlık. Hiç vakit kaybetmeden hemen başlayalım.
The houses of 22 people, 20 of them being journalists including Jin News director Safiye Alagash and Dicle Fırat Journalists Association co-chairman Serdar Altan, were raided as part of the investigation carried out by the Diyarbakır Chief Public Prosecutor's Office on June 8. 16 of those detained were arrested on the charge of terrorist organization membership by the court they were taken to 8 days later. 4 of them were released on the condition of judicial measures.
16 of 22 people, including Migration Monitoring Association COGITO co-chairs Kamile Kandal and Mehmet Boğatekin, who were detained on June 3 as a part of the investigation conducted by the Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office, were arrested on charges of terrorist organization membership. After an 8-day period of detainment, 6 people were released on the condition of judicial measures.
The Gemlik March, which was organized by many non-governmental organizations, but especially the People's Democratic Party and the Democratic Regions Party, in order to draw attention to the solitary confinement of Abdullah Öcalan, was intervened in different provinces. In Kadıköy district of Istanbul, the police detained 70 people, including political party leaders, with torture. Among those detained, the People's Democratic Party Kadıköy district co-chairs Koray Türkay and İsmail Temel were arrested.
19 people were detained in Bursa, where the government declared a one-week ban on protests and events. As a Potamya News Agency reported, Ergin Çağlar and Jin News reported Roselin Gültekin were also detained. In a statement of his social media account, Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu defended the intervention against the demonstration and once again declared that People's Democratic Party parliament members as well as regulatory institutions and organizations as terrorists.
The political party membership of the Republican People's Party Istanbul Provincial Chair Canan Kaftancıoğlu was revoked after the Court of Cassation upheld a sentence of 4 years, 11 months and 20 days for her social media posts. Kaftancıoğlu was sent to Silivri prison, and she was released within probation the same day. Although there was no decree regarding Kaftancıoğlu that specified a political ban, she was prevented from doing politics during the finalized sentence. In this context, Kaftancıoğlu's political party membership was revoked by the Court of Cassation's Chief Public Prosecutor's Office.
According to the 2021 judicial statistics of the Ministry of Justice, investigations were opened against 48,000 people in a year on charges of insulting the president, Article 299 of Turkish Criminal Code, and insulting the state, Article 301. A total of 12,670 people, including 407 children, were prosecuted. 4,582 people were convicted. In addition, the sentences given in 4,465 files were deferred. Within the scope of law, meetings and demonstrations, which is another of the biggest obstacles against freedom of expression in criminal laws, investigations were launched against 7,704 citizens in a year. As a result of these investigations, 5,155 citizens were put on trial and 3,575 lawsuits, 1,674 convictions were given, and the sentences issued in 829 cases were deferred.
At the wedding held in Istanbul Esenyurt on June 12th, the groom, who was wearing a yellow, red, green shawl, and 9 guests were detained on charges of making propaganda for a terrorist organization. The songs sung at the neighborhood wedding were made reasons for the detainment, and the 10 people were arrested by the court they were later taken to.
In Van, the police detained one mother and her child due to a T-shirt with the photo of former People's Democratic Party co-chair Selahattin Demirtaş. 6 citizens who were passing by the incident reacted to the police and they were also detained.
A lawsuit was filed against journalist Nebiye Arı, who was detained as she was covering the protest of the people coming from different cities to draw attention to the inadequacy of dormitories and increased rents, which was banned by the governorate on December 12th in Ankara on the grounds of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations number 2911.
Journalist Hayri Tunç was charged with public incitement to hatred and enmity because of the video he shared on Twitter, which included a short part of an interview with the mother of Hasan Yüzak, who lost his life in Maraş massacre.
An investigation has been launched against Bir Gün Daily editor Gökay Başcan due to the news published in the newspaper regarding the regulation that will pave the way for the authorization of the tender for eyeballs and buoys to be established in the bays to the Environment Agency, which was established under the auspices of Emine Erdoğan. The news in question was censored by the Istanbul Anatolian 6th Criminal Judicature of Peace on the grounds that it damaged Emine Erdoğan's reputation.
Journalist İnci Hekimoğlu of Artı Gerçek was detained by the Izmir police anti-terror teams, who came to her home at around 6 o'clock in the morning on the grounds of her social media posts. Hekimoğlu was released after testifying. With the scope of the investigation, she is charged with making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to 4 of her tweets in the years 2014 and 2015.
Founding chairman of the Confederation of European Alevi Unions and former People's Democratic Party Istanbul Parliament member Turgut Öker was detained in Ankara on the charge of armed terrorist organization membership because of a speech he gave during the Nevroz festival in Adıyaman.
Human Rights Association Ankara branch manager Adile Erkan was detained in a police raid against her home as a part of an investigation launched by the Balıkesir Chief Public Prosecutor's Office.
Writer Cafer Solgun criticized on social media the administrative fines issued against the Düzgün Baba Cemevi for different reasons and the Nazilliye District Governor Uğur Tutkan's photo taken in front of the Cemevi in the presence of armed law enforcement. Afterwards, he was called upon to testify following the district governor's complaint.
7 of the 22 Furkan Foundation volunteers who were detained in the press statement made in Konya to show solidarity with the 18 members of Furkan Foundation and the foundation's president Alparslan Kuytul were arrested on charges of unauthorized demonstration and resisting the police. 15 people were released on the condition of judicial measures. On the other hand, after the arrest warrant, Foundation volunteers had protests in many cities. 6 people were detained in protests in Bursa and 4 people in Ankara.
The police attacked the Pride Parade, which was organized for the 10th time by the students at the Middle East Technical University, with tear gas and rubber bullets, and 36 people were detained with reverse handcuffs and torture.
The police intervened against the university students who wanted to organize an alternative university festival against the banned festivals in Kadıköy. At least 20 students were detained.
During the graduation ceremony of Anadolu University in Eskişehir, 2 students were detained after wanting to open a banner with the text, "We did not forget Ali Ismail," for Ali Ismail Korkmaz, who was killed during the Gezi Park resistance.
The police intervened once again in the statement that Enerjisa workers who have been protesting for about 3 months after their unlawful dismissal wanted to make in front of Sabancı Holding in Istanbul, the Confederation of Revolutionary Trade Unions of Turkey, DİSK, Energy Unions Chairman Süleyman Keskin, founding Chairman Kamil Kartal, and 4 workers were detained.
2 of the citizens who stood guard in front of the construction site for 7 days to protest the Çekmeköy municipality's opening of the park, which is the second largest disaster assembly area in the region, were detained because they did not allow the construction equipment to enter the park.
The One Governorate once again extended the protest and demonstrations ban that had been declared during the state of emergency and has been ongoing since 2016 for 15 days. Protests and demonstrations were banned between June 13 and 25 due to the reason of national security and public order. The requirement of permission by public administration was introduced for the distribution of leaflets, brochures, and flyers in the city. On the other hand, in Bitlis, the governorate has bound all kinds of protests and demonstrations to permission by the civil administration for 15 days.
Çanakkale Governorate banned the Pride Parade and Pride Week events.
Diyarbakır Fourth Criminal Judicature of Peace has blocked the website of Etkin News Agency from access on the grounds of national security. The agency's website was censored for the second time in the last 10 days, 42 times in total.
A Yıldız Technical University student parked a model car they designed in front of the rectorate building as a reaction against the luxury car rented by the rectorate for 1.5 million Turkish liras was suspended on the grounds of an act harming honor and dignity.
Yeditepe University launched a disciplinary investigation against Professor Dr. Veysel Ulusoy, founder of the Inflation Research Group, which often announces alternative data of the Turkish Statistical Institute, TÜİK, since its reliability is often debated and shared with the public.
During the protest organized upon the call of Adana Metropolitan Municipality Mayor Zeydan Karalar to prevent the closure of Şakirpaşa Airport, journalist Kerem Demiral and his son Mehmet Demiral were attacked as they were covering a discussion between Karalar and a citizen. Çukurova Journalists Association condemned the attack, and Zeydan Karalar called the journalist and offered his apologies.
Journalist Serkan Güngör was beaten by a group of employees of the construction site in Büyükada, one of the Prince Islands in Istanbul, where he went to work on a news report about the construction that was allegedly illegal. Güngör stated, "I was already receiving threats because of the news I made about the islands. The people threatening me and the people responsible for this incident are from the same group."
The Media and Law Studies Association shared its report on 41 journalism and freedom of expression cases they followed in May. A total of 174 people, including 79 activists, 37 journalists and 20 students, stood trial in the related cases. News and articles in 26 cases and social media posts in 17 cases were among the evidence shown in the accusations.
Gelelim haftanın adliye mesaisine. İşte bu hafta takip ettiğimiz davalardan seçtiklerimiz.
A street artist with the alias Unpermitted was sentenced to 1 year, 2 months and 27 days in prison for insulting the president in the lawsuit filed against him for his drawings and Twitter posts. The Istanbul 20th Criminal Court of First Instance issued a verdict of acquittal on the charge of openly insulting the signs of the state's sovereignty. The artist had been arrested for his work on a billboard in Kabataş in 2020, which was about suicides due to financial difficulties, and a lawsuit had been filed against him on the charge of insulting the signs of the state's sovereignty. Then the graffiti he shared on social media were added to the case file on the charge of insulting the president.
Previously shut down, Dicle News Agency reporter Mehmet Arslan was sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison in the lawsuit filed against him at the Erzurum Third Assize Court on the charge of making propaganda for a terrorist organization. The announcement of the verdict was deferred.
The lawsuit filed against 12 citizens at the Adana Third Assize Court due to the protests held in Adana during the Gezi Park protest was concluded after 9 years. All activists were acquitted of terrorist organization membership and making propaganda for a terrorist organization charges. 7 people were sentenced to 2 years and 5 months in prison on the charge of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations number 2911.
The first hearing of the lawsuit filed against the Republican People's Party Çorum Provincial Chairman Mehmet Tahtasız, Central District Chairman Ulaş Tokgöz, and Provincial Women's Branch Chair Kamile Anar was held at the Çorum First Criminal Court of First Instance on charges of related and distributing leaflets prepared by the party. Charged with insulting the president, the trial of Republican People's Party executives will continue on November 29.
Journalist Ismail Saymaz, who brought up allegations of abuse in a cult, was sentenced to a judicial fine of 3,480 Turkish liras in the lawsuit filed against him at the Istanbul 35th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting.
The first hearing of the lawsuit filed against journalist İnci Aydın on the charge of targeting those who took part in the fight against terrorism upon the complaint of Deputy Commander of the Gendarmerie General Command and Lieutenant General Musa Çitil was held at the Aydın Second Assize Court. The journalist is charged due to the article titled, "We have no note to the government, but we have a word. We will send you away, together with your injustices." And the trial will continue on October 6.
The lawsuit filed against journalist Can Ataklı began at the Istanbul 16th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of publicly denigrating a part of society. The journalist is accused of commenting on the incidents taking place during İYİ Party leader Meral Akşener's visits to Rize on the TV show The Day Begins, broadcast on Tele1 channel on May 21, 2021. The second hearing of the case will be held on October 20th.
The lawsuit filed against 7 People's Democratic Party members and a journalist on charge related to distributing a statement prepared by People's Democratic Party last December regarding the budget negotiations in the parliament, which drew attention to the poverty brought on by the economic crisis in Manisa, resulted in acquittal in the second hearing. Manisa Turgutlu, 4th Criminal Court of First Instance, decided that the persons charged with violating the law in meetings and demonstrations were acquitted separately on the grounds that the elements of the crime were not constituted.
The lawsuit filed against Union of Chambers of Turkish Engineers and Architects Diyarbakır Provincial Coordination Board Secretary Doğan Hatun at the Diyarbakır 8th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting the state in accordance with Article 301 of the Turkish Criminal Code through the press statement made in 2020 regarding the plans to open the land of highways in Diyarbakır city centre for rent was concluded with acquittal.
Medeni Yıldırım has lost his life as a result of gunfire opened by soldiers during the police station protests in Lice district of Diyarbakır at the time of the Gazi Park protests. His brother, Mehmet Yıldırım, was convicted of insulting the president because of the posts made by a social media account that was opened with the name of Medeni Yıldırım. Although there is no evidence that Mehmet Yıldırım was indeed the user of the account in question, the case fire claimed in the social media account was used by Mehmet Yıldırım. Diyarbakır 4th Criminal Court of First Instance sentenced Yıldırım to 1 year, 2 months, and 17 days in prison and deferred the announcement of the verdict.
Bu haftada programımıza sığdırabildiğimiz ifade özgürlüğü gelişmeleri bunlar oldu. Ancak memlekette daha fazlası var maalesef. Geri kalanlar her zaman olduğu gibi internet sitemizde ve haftalık bültenlerimizde. Yeniden görüşünceye dek sağlıcakla kalın.